Welcome to the Deep Dive, your shortcut to being truly well-informed. Today, we're diving headfirst into something pretty big, an assertion that's really shaking things up. The idea that President Trump is dramatically expanding the bounds of the presidency. I mean, in ways no one before him has in modern times.
Right. It's a bold claim, but there seems to be evidence stacking up.
Exactly. This isn't just, political talk. It's a hard look at a summer packed with actions that, well, they seem to redefine executive power.
Yeah, we've seen a lot. Settling political scores, maybe. Using brute force, some might say, to push an agenda.
Right. And facing furious objections all the while.
Yeah.
It's this really striking, relentless assertion of executive will.
Definitely.
So our mission today, what we want to do is guide you through what all this means, the implications of this power assertion.
Yeah, but the pushback, too, right, from the constitutional system, which is under, well, unprecedented strain, it feels like.
Absolutely. And then the global shifts it's triggering, kind of surprising some of them.
Yeah, the ripple effects go way beyond the U.S. borders.
We're going to explore how these actions are, fundamentally reshaping our own domestic institutions, but also reverberating around the world. Redefining alliances, global perceptions, the whole nine yards.
And we're basing this on some solid analysis, a recent CNN panel discussion, right?
That's right. Really sharp insights from Molly Ball, he's an author, a Wall Street Journal reporter, Mario Parker from Bloomberg, great economic and political takes.
Yeah, I know his work.
And Stephen Collinson from CNN, bringing that crucial international context. They really broke down these complex developments.
It sounds like a great source base for this.
Yeah, so we're here to distill their observations, hopefully give you some aha moments about how power really works.
And maybe, just as importantly, where it hits its limits, especially in a republic.
Exactly. So get ready. We're about to unpack some pretty profound changes.
It's definitely an essential deep dive. Because what we're seeing, it isn't just, a few isolated things happening, random political fights.
Right. It feels more connected.
It feels like a systemic challenge, a challenge to establish norms, to institutional independence, even to the whole idea of objective data inside the government.
That's a huge point. Objective data.
Yeah, the panel really drove this home. While the actions might look separate, a firing here, a tariff there, they seem to reveal this consistent, overarching strategy.
To reshape the government.
Pretty much. The goal appears to be aligning every single part from the top down exclusively with his immediate agenda.
Wow.
So understanding this pattern and the reactions to it, which are getting stronger from other branches, from the world stage, it's vital if you want to be genuinely well-informed right now.
It's about the whole architecture of power, not just the headline.
Exactly. It's about the architecture itself.
Okay, that sets the stage perfectly. So let's pull back the curtain on how this executive will is being expressed.
Where do we start?
Let's start with maybe the most infamous phrase from his past career. A phrase that's now kind of echoing through government halls. We've all heard it, haven't we?
Oh, yeah.
You're fired.
You're fired from The Apprentice. But what we're seeing now is that brand, that persona, translating into this systematic, some say brutal effort to remove officials.
And challenge independence.
Right. Challenging the independence of institutions, especially those that present, dissenting data or viewpoints.
And this isn't just shuffling deck chairs, is it? It's not just personnel changes.
No, it seems to be about shaping reality itself within the government, bending it to fit a certain narrative.
What's really fascinating and frankly deeply concerning to some is how deliberately this "you're fired" thing is being applied.
How so?
It's not just aimed at political appointees. Presidents hire and fire those all the time. That's normal.
Okay.
No, the targets often seem to be career civil servants or figures whose roles are traditionally insulated from politics.
Why? Why insulate them?
Because their job depends on objectivity.
Yeah.
On independence. Think about scientists, statisticians, economists. Yeah.
The source material highlights this really specific kind of troubling pattern, systematically going after any viewpoint, any data that conflicts with his agenda.
Even if the data is true.
Even if that data is factually irrefutable. Stuff that's foundational to how government runs. This includes officials who are supposed to be independent, nonpartisan, like referees.
Referees of government data.
Exactly. And when you silence or remove the referees, well, the whole game changes, doesn't it?
Yeah, it really does. And we've seen some really specific, high-profile examples, things that need a closer look.
Like Lisa Cook.
Exactly. Lisa Cook, member of the Federal Reserve Board. She's currently fighting an effort to fire her.
That's huge. The Fed.
It is huge.
Yeah.
Now, for a lot of our listeners, the Federal Reserve might seem kind of abstract. But its independence is just absolutely crucial.
Oh, fundamentally.
Could you maybe elaborate on why the Fed's independence is so vital? And what are the big, long-term consequences if you politicize a body like that? What happens if the Fed isn't seen as objective?
Right. Well, the Federal Reserve's independence is, and this isn't an overstatement, it's foundational. Foundational to the stability of our whole economy and actually global financial markets too.
Okay.
Its job, its mandate, is to manage monetary policy. Things like setting interest rates, controlling inflation, trying to keep employment high, and crucially, making those decisions based purely on economic data.
Not politics.
Not political expediency, not the election cycle. Historically, presidents, Congress, they've understood this. Giving the Fed operational independence stops short-term political pressures from messing up long-term economic stability.
That makes sense.
So the aha moment here, I think, is realizing that if the Fed becomes politicized, if its officials can just be kicked out for presenting data the administration doesn't like.
Like predicting inflation when they want to talk about growth.
Exactly like that. If that happens, it just fundamentally shreds trust. Markets, both here and internationally, from the smallest investor to the biggest hedge fund, they rely on the Fed being this steady, nonpartisan hand, making data-driven calls.
So the consequences could be
Potentially catastrophic. More market volatility, a big loss of investor confidence, higher borrowing costs for businesses, for you buying a house or a car, ultimately a less stable, less predictable economy.
Wow.
It basically injects political risk right into the heart of our financial system, a risk the system was specifically designed to avoid.
That's a really powerful explanation of the stakes there. And it's not just the Fed, is it? The sources talk about a wider purge across critical government functions that should be nonpartisan.
That's right. It seems to be broader.
We're talking the CDC, the Centers for Disease Control. The director was ousted there.
A critical public health agency.
Yeah. And reported efforts against the Surface Transportation Board, which maybe not everyone knows, but it's super important for infrastructure and commerce.
Absolutely. Regulates freight rail, pipelines, things that affect everyday prices.
Also the head of the Defense Intelligence Agency, and even the Bureau of Labor Statistics Commissioner.
The person responsible for the jobs report.
The person who puts out the monthly jobs report, which the president reportedly didn't like because it wasn't as rosy as he wanted.
Yeah.
This isn't just about competence then. It's really about controlling the information, isn't it? Shaping the narrative.
It is absolutely about controlling information. And by extension, controlling the narrative, controlling perceived reality. The motivation seems unambiguously clear.
Which is?
To target any viewpoint, any data that conflicts with the president's agenda, even if that data is objectively true, produced by the government's own experts.
Even from supposedly independent roles.
Often, yes. Roles designed to be independent or nonpartisan, like we said, the referees of government data.
So let's take that Surface Transportation Board example you mentioned. Can you unpack that a bit more? Why is its independence important?
Sure. It's a quasi-judicial federal agency. It regulates the economic side of things, like freight rail, some passenger rail, certain pipelines. It's meant to be independent.
To ensure fairness.
Exactly. Fair access, reasonable rates, competitive practices in industries that are just crucial for moving goods across the country. I mean, this affects the price of your groceries, the reliability of supply chains, everything.
Okay.
So if that board gets politicized, if its independence is compromised, decisions could start favoring specific companies or regions for political reasons. That distorts markets, could create monopolies.
And potentially hit consumers in the pocketbook.
Potentially impact the cost and reliability of everyday goods for you, yes. When these critical roles get attacked or eliminated for delivering news the boss doesn't like, it sends this profound, chilling effect through the whole federal bureaucracy.
A chilling effect. What does that actually mean in practice?
It means people become hesitant. They second-guess reporting facts that might displease the executive, which leads to this dangerously distorted view of reality inside the administration itself.
So it's not just about someone not speaking up.
No. The true aha moment here is recognizing that a chilling effect isn't just silence. It's about how the absence of those inconvenient facts can create massive blind spots.
Leading to bad decisions.
Leading to suboptimal, maybe even dangerous decisions across really critical policy areas. Health, economy, security.
That's a powerful point. From a popular perspective, it's easy to see the appeal sometimes. A strong, assertive leader who looks out for problems and takes care of them.
Sure, decisiveness can be appealing.
It gives a sense of action, strong leadership. But what's the deeper implication, the real cost, when that assertiveness targets the very institutions designed to give its objective, nonpartisan information? Where does that road lead?
Well, it leads to a profound erosion of trust. Trust in government, trust in expertise, especially now when people already question official sources a lot.
Right. There's already skepticism out there.
And the administration's view, it seems, is that anything conflicting with its stance is, well, they use the term the deep state, right? And it must be eliminated.
Can you explain deep state in this context?
In this context, it's often portrayed as this kind of shadowy group. Unelected bureaucrats, career officials, supposedly working against the president's agenda behind the scenes.
Whether that's true or not.
Exactly. Whether it's true or not, that narrative creates an environment where civil servants, experts, they might self-censor. They might hesitate to give the unvarnished truth because they fear for their jobs.
Which makes government less effective.
It can lead to a significant degradation of governmental effectiveness, yes. Now, the markets. Sometimes their reactions have been kind of muted.
Why is that?
One panelist suggested it's almost like a hypnosis effect. Maybe investor fatigue from all the political drama, or a belief the system will just fix itself eventually. But the long-term consequences, a central bank, a health agency that isn't truly independent, those are severe. It leads to politicization of critical functions, a loss of public confidence.
Can you give an example?
Imagine a health crisis. If the CDC's recommendations are seen as politically motivated, not scientifically sound, that could totally compromise a national response to an epidemic.
Directly impacting people's safety. My family's health.
Directly impacting your family's health. That's at the real price.
Okay, so we've looked at reshaping the landscape of facts and expertise within government. But this my way or the highway approach, it goes further, doesn't it?
It seems to.
What happens when that executive assertiveness targets not just data, but actual people? Perceived political enemies.
Ah, right. This is where it gets, as you said, really interesting and potentially quite concerning for some.
Because beyond targeting independent officials, there seems to be this blatant effort to use prosecutions and investigations against his political foes.
Leveraging the Justice Department.
Yes, leveraging the DOJ in ways that raise serious questions about impartiality, which is, a cornerstone of our legal system, a republic.
Indeed. The panel pointed to a pretty disconcerting list of perceived enemies who've apparently been targeted or threatened with investigations.
Like who?
John Bolton, for one. Former National Security Advisor. His house was reportedly raided. Others, like Senator Letitia James, a Democrat, very vocal critic. Congressman Adam Schiff, who led impeachment efforts. Even Jack Smith, the special counsel investigating the president.
They're all in the crosshairs.
They found themselves threatened with investigations or facing direct legal action, according to the reports.
And what are the allegations typically?
Well, what's particularly alarming, according to the panel, is this alleged double standard. The accusations against some of these people involve things like listing multiple homes for their documents for mortgages and bank documents.
Financial stuff. Maybe misrepresentation?
Potentially complex legal matters like financial misrepresentation or tax issues. But then there's this reported quite striking absence of similar investigations into Republicans, even when similar allegations pop up.
Could you give an example?
The panel specifically mentioned Ken Paxton, Attorney General of Texas, running for Senate. He's faced his own very public legal challenges, allegations of similar financial irregularities.
Yeah.
No known federal investigation that we're aware of, the panel noted.
That's a critical point, the potential double standard. Because the perception, or maybe the reality, of using government power, especially the DOJ's power, to investigate and prosecute, to go after political opponents, that sets an incredibly dangerous precedent, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. For a republic, it blurs the lines
between legitimate law enforcement and just political payback.
Exactly. Turning the legal system into a weapon in the political arena, it raises this fundamental, really troubling question about the rule of law itself.
How so?
For decades, the Justice Department has tried to operate under strong norms of independence, specifically to prevent this kind of weaponization. Attorneys General, historically, they've kept a firewall between the White House and ongoing investigations.
So keep politics out of prosecution.
To ensure political considerations don't influence who gets charged. That principle is crucial for public faith in impartial justice.
So if the DOJ is seen as a tool for settling scores,
it undermines that fundamental principle, equal justice under the law. The idea that nobody's above the law, everyone faces the same legal standards, no matter their politics.
It suggests your political alignment might decide if you get investigated.
That's the risk. And that could have profound, lasting implications for the checks and balances meant to protect citizens from arbitrary government power. It risks turning democracy into something more punitive, almost authoritarian.
So the aha here is...
The aha is realizing that a politicized Justice Department doesn't just hurt specific people, it erodes the very concept of fair governance and protected liberties for everyone.
Wow, okay. This all brings us to a really striking, maybe infamous statement the president reportedly made, apparently in a cabinet meeting this week. A long one, 3 hours. Contentious.
Yes, that report surfaced.
He was quoted saying, "I'm the president of the United States, and I can do exactly what I want."
A remarkable statement.
Now, in a very direct, raw, almost transactional way, that might feel true sometimes.
Yeah.
Right? Especially when we talk about executive privilege, or even, as we just discussed, potentially weaponizing the DOJ.
Operationally, a president can do a lot.
But constitutionally speaking, in a republic like ours, that statement is fundamentally absolutely not true. The president can't just do whatever he wants.
Correct. That's the core principle of limited government.
And this is where we start getting into some very difficult, potentially dangerous territory for the whole system.
That statement, "I'm the president, I can do exactly what I want," it just perfectly encapsulates the tension we're dissecting today.
How so?
Operationally, sure, a president can initiate things, issue executive orders, direct agencies, appoint people, loads of power.
Right.
But constitutionally, in our republic, with its carefully designed checks and balances, the president's power is inherently limited, constrained.
By design.
Intentionally, the founders designed it so no single branch could act alone without limits, specifically to stop unchecked power, the kind that leads to tyranny.
So when a president says, "I can do exactly what I want,"
it directly challenges that foundation. It signals a potential disregard for the very mechanisms meant to prevent that overreach. The system is designed to stop any one person from having total control.
and we've seen this play out in some really concerning, almost surreal ways, haven't we? Beyond just policy fights.
There have been reports, yeah.
Remember the CIA officer reportedly fired for briefing the president with information he didn't want to hear before meeting Putin.
Yes, that story was alarming. Briefing the president before a critical meeting.
Or the situation with the CDC director. His unwillingness to, quote, trash generations of science for the president's agenda led the White House to basically say, if you don't share the president's agenda on health, we'll show you the door.
Yeah, that was another stark example.
These aren't just isolated incidents, are they? They feel like part of a pattern.
They are stark, chilling illustrations of what can happen when a president asserts unilateral control over the very idea of reality within the executive branch.
When one person decides what's real.
Right. And everyone else in the administration has to shape their analysis, their advice, to fit that reality. It creates an incredibly difficult, potentially dangerous position for the country.
And this approach, it has consequences.
It will inevitably exact a price, as the panel put it, and that price can be profoundly high.
In what areas?
Think about foreign affairs. If intelligence assessments are, let's say, curated to fit a narrative before a meeting with a rival like Putin, instead of giving the unvarnished truth.
Our national security could be compromised.
Directly. Misinformation, incomplete information. It can lead to catastrophic foreign policy mistakes, impacting global stability, the safety of our troops.
And public health.
Similarly, if accurate science from the CDC is suppressed or twisted for political reasons, it severely undermines our ability to respond effectively to an epidemic, a health crisis. It risks countless lives.
So the decisions impacting us are based on potentially a manufactured reality.
That's the danger. Decisions affecting lives and safety. Based on a manufactured reality, the risks aren't theoretical, they're tangible, potentially devastating.
And this isn't just political drama for us to watch, is it?
Yeah.
This is about the basic integrity of information, the institutions providing it, and it directly impacts policy decisions that affect your life, your safety.
Absolutely.
If the info shaping our defense, our health strategies, our economic policies, even environmental rules, if it's being twisted to fit an agenda, not based on objective truth.
The implications for all of us are profound.
It means decisions hitting your health, your job, your safety, America's place in the world. They could be made on flawed, biased information.
Precisely.
Okay, so if part one was about asserting power, that relentless drive to expand presidential authority, part two now shifts. Let's explore checks and balances under pressure, the limits of executive power.
The counter-movement.
Exactly, because while the executive has been incredibly assertive, the judicial branch, it's now acting as a significant check, maybe cautious sometimes, but a check nonetheless, pushing back.
It's a critical test for the whole constitutional system.
Really is. It's the constitutional system doing what it was designed to do, isn't it? Providing checks and balances.
That's the idea. Even the most aggressive executive will eventually bump up against resistance from other branches.
And the courts are key here.
The judiciary, yeah. They're uniquely positioned to interpret the law, look at the constitutional limits, and say, does this action fit within the boundaries?
So it's a test. Can the system handle this kind of sustained pressure?
That's the question. Does the design hold up?
And we saw a major ruling just late Friday that really highlighted this.
The tariffs ruling.
Yes. An appeals court found the president's sweeping tariffs unlawful. Stated explicitly he overstepped his authority.
That's strong language from an appeals court.
And crucially, this wasn't the first time, right? The sources say this is actually the second court. The U.S. Court of International Trade was first to find most of these tariffs unlawful.
Okay, so building consensus in the judiciary.
Not all tariffs, they note. Some are under national security authority. But a big chunk, economically huge. That consensus from two separate federal courts, that's powerful, isn't it?
It is absolutely powerful. It signals a strong judicial challenge to how the executive is interpreting its trade powers.
What does it mean when courts speak like that?
When multiple courts, looking at the same arguments independently, reach similar conclusions, it sends a clear message. The executive's actions here are on shaky legal ground.
And this isn't some minor issue.
No, this hits a core economic policy, something that's defined a big part of the president's foreign policy and economic strategy.
What are the financial stakes?
Huge. These tariffs currently bring in, the estimate is around $107 billion or so to the Treasury.
Wow, $107 billion.
So if the Supreme Court agrees with this appeals court, it wouldn't just kill a signature policy, it could disrupt the whole world's economic order. Businesses scrambling with supply chains, trade relationships.
And it's not just tariffs where courts have pushed back.
No, we've seen courts hold back other initiatives, too, particularly some immigration-related efforts. The president has been held back on those by courts as well. It shows a pattern of judicial scrutiny in different areas.
Okay, so that's a massive financial stake with the tariffs, let alone the policy side. So this appeals court ruling means the tariff issue is now in the Supreme Court's court, so to speak.
Yep, headed to the highest court.
But it's not just tariffs heading there. We also hear the issue of Federal Reserve firings, that effort to remove Lisa Cook that's also headed for the Supreme Court.
Right, another major institutional question.
And this was really interesting because didn't the court rule on this before, something about the Fed being different?
Yes. In previous rulings, the court had specifically carved out the Fed from its ruling that Trump could dismiss members of independent agencies.
Can you explain that? Why was the Fed treated differently, and why does that matter now?
Sure, that carve-out is a really critical legal point. The Supreme Court has wrestled with presidential power to remove agency officials for a long time. The big case is Humphrey's executor from 1935.
What did that establish?
That the president's removal power isn't absolute, especially for officials on multi-member expert bodies designed to be independent, like commissions.
Okay. And more recently?
More recently, in SELA law versus the CFPB in 2020, the court said the president could remove a single director of an independent agency at will.
But not the Fed.
But crucially, in that same ruling, the court specifically carved out the Fed board. The key distinction they made was that the Fed is a multi-member body. Governors serve fixed, staggered terms. Their expertise is meant to insulate them from politics.
To protect monetary policy.
Exactly. The court recognized the Fed's unique functions, quasi-legislative, quasi-judicial, especially its role in economic stability, demand a greater degree of independence.
So overturning that would be huge.
It would essentially open the door to direct political control over monetary policy, with all the potential economic instability we talked about. So yeah, these upcoming Supreme Court decisions, a truly critical test of the checks and balances in the Constitution.
Okay, thinking about all this judicial uncertainty, tariffs might be overturned, the Fed's independent structure challenged. What does this mean for our trading partners? One panelist said they must be dazed and confused right now.
Yeah, sounds about right.
How does this domestic uncertainty undermine the U.S. position when we're negotiating with, say, China or Japan, when our own courts are questioning our policies.
It's fascinating how quickly domestic legal fights ripple outwards, right? Affecting real-world diplomacy, economic ties. Scott Bessent, the panel mentioned him, prominent investor, former Trump economic advisor. He commented that this undermines and potentially undermines the U.S. on the global stage as well.
Could be embarrassing.
Could be embarrassing, yeah, during negotiations. Imagine sitting across from China or Japan, trying to use trade policy as leverage, maybe impose new tariffs, demand concessions.
While knowing your own Supreme Court might rule those policies illegal.
Exactly. It signals unpredictability, internal division, potential unreliability.
So other countries can't count on U.S. policy.
It creates huge uncertainty for them. They need stability, predictability from the U.S. to make their own long-term investment and supply chain decisions.
Right.
If policies can be just imposed unilaterally, then legally challenged, maybe overturned, it shreds confidence in any deal reached. It can really weaken the U.S. bargaining position, make it harder to get stable long-term trade deals.
And potentially push them to look elsewhere.
Potentially push partners to seek more reliable alliances elsewhere. We'll touch on that later, I think. But yeah, the dazed and confused reaction, totally understandable. It reflects a real lack of predictability that hits global economic stability.
Okay, let's shift from the judicial branch to the legislative. Let's talk Congress. Traditionally, Congress is a key check, right? Foundational, with its own specific powers.
Absolutely. Power of the purse, oversight, legislation.
Yet under this administration, Congress has often seemed, well, reluctant. Reluctant to push back on executive overreach.
Yeah, that's been a noticeable dynamic.
Almost like they're hesitant to use their constitutional muscles, letting executive power expand into areas that used to be theirs.
It's a really significant part of the current challenge to checks and balances. Congress has substantial, explicit powers to rein in the executive.
Like with tariffs.
Tariffs are a perfect example. Historically, that was Congress's job. Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution, clear as day. Congress has the power to regulate commerce with foreign nations. But, as the source material points out, Congress could have sort of acted already on tariffs, and they've decided not to. That inaction isn't just passive, it's a choice.
A choice that lets executive power grow.
By default, yes. It effectively surrenders some of their constitutional authority.
And we saw a really specific, telling example of this reluctance with Senator Rand Paul, didn't we?
Right, his attempt to force a vote.
He tried to force a vote on tariffs, a policy that for generations was like backbone of conservative thinking, right? Free trade, limited executive power in economics.
Traditionally, yes, a core tenet.
Yet, when he tried to assert that legislative role, how many Republicans joined him?
Only 3, according to the report.
Only 3? That's a stark indicator, isn't it, of how reluctant Congress is to challenge the president, even on issues that used to be core to their party's ideology.
It's incredibly revealing. That low support suggests partisan alignment. Maybe loyalty to the executive has kind of overridden traditional stances, even constitutional duties on things like trade.
It's not just politics, then. It's about the system's function.
It raises that profound question the panel posed. Has enough happened that the Congress is now starting to get cold feet and be willing to push back? We shall see when they come back.
Because the system depends on each branch doing its job.
Exactly. The effectiveness, the survival of our system hinges on each branch playing its role. If one branch is hesitant, unwilling to use its checks, the balance fundamentally shifts.
And your representation gets affected.
Your representation in policymaking can be directly affected, yeah. Decisions get made without that robust legislative debate or oversight.
Okay, so if Congress has been, let's say, hesitant, what about the Supreme Court? Especially this particular court, the conservative court.
The final arbiter in many ways.
Historically, the panel noted it's been quite reluctant to push back on an aggressive executive. Sometimes it's even expanded the executive powers in recent rulings on Trump admin initiative.
That's true. There's been a trend towards deference to the executive in certain areas.
So this court has often seemed to favor a strong executive.
Which makes this the ultimate test, really. It presents a huge dilemma for this conservative-leaning Supreme Court.
Why dilemma?
Because while a conservative court might generally lean towards a strong executive, these upcoming cases, tariffs, Fed firings, they present direct, unavoidable challenges to executive overreach.
Overreach in really big areas.
In very, very significant areas, yes. areas touching core constitutional powers, economic stability.
So even if they've deferred before.
Even if they've deferred before, particularly on national security or foreign policy, maybe expanded presidential power sometimes, now the court has to weigh the president's asserted power against fundamental principles, separation of powers, independence of critical institutions.
So where does the court go? That's the big question.
That question looms large, absolutely.
Yeah.
These cases force the court to draw a line, or consciously not draw one, about the boundaries of presidential authority.
It's a critical test.
It truly is a critical test of whether the checks and balances in the Constitution are strong enough to restrain an executive pushing those limits. The outcome will set precedents for decades, defining presidential power long after this administration.
Okay, wow. Let's shift gears now. Let's move to part 3. Global stage shifts. A world of strongmen.
The international dimension.
Right. Because what's happening here at home, the power assertions, the battles over checks and balances, it's not just happening in a vacuum, it's echoing around the world.
Creating ripples. Big ones.
Changing long-standing alliances,
Oh,
altering global power dynamics, maybe even reshaping the whole international order.
It seems like China, especially, is seeing an opportunity.
Amidst all our domestic shifts, our international policy changes, China is strategically asserting its strength, forging new alliances that could dramatically reshape things. And it's not theoretical, it's happening right now.
What's truly fascinating, and maybe alarming to some, is how immediate this feedback loop is between U.S. domestic policy shifts and our international standing. The perceived unpredictability, the challenges to norms, the internal fights here, it seems to have created a strategic opening. Other global powers can assert themselves more aggressively.
And the panel pointed to a specific meeting.
Yeah, a very important symbolic meeting happening today in China. Look at the guest list. Xi Jinping, the Chinese leader, Narendra Modi, India's prime minister, Vladimir Putin, Russia's president.
Wow, that's a powerful group.
And crucially, as the panel noted, other world leaders who are not so friendly with the United States are there too. This isn't just a routine summit, it feels like a statement.
And the context is key too, right? India's role.
Absolutely key. It's happening when India is battling with the United States over tariffs and the like. That's not minor. That's a major friction point with a country that's traditionally non-aligned but has been leaning more towards the U.S.
So this meeting, with these specific leaders, especially India being there, it's a show of strength of sorts by China.
It seems like it, suggesting an alternative axis of power is forming, or at least solidifying, potentially challenging that post-World War II global order centered on the U.S.
Wow. So this meeting is more than just a photo op.
Far more. It's a powerful signal of shifting geopolitical alignments. Think about it. For 20 years of U.S. policy, across different administrations on nuclear issues, everything, it's been designed to keep India and China somewhat antagonistic.
To pull India into the U.S. orbit.
To make sure India moves into the U.S. orbit, not the Chinese orbit. It's been a cornerstone of U.S. foreign policy in Asia, a strategic imperative to contain China's influence.
But now,
the current U.S. administration's tariff situation with India, and maybe even more, its interventions on Kashmir during recent India-Pakistan clashes, that has apparently antagonized Modi.
even though Trump and Modi had seemed close.
Exactly. Despite what was once seen as a very good relationship, remember those 2 massive stadium rallies with him in his first term?
Yeah.
The aha moment here, I think, is that traditional diplomacy, personal relationships, they can unravel fast when core national interests or longstanding policies are challenged by what's seen as inconsistency or antagonism from a major partner.
So this antagonism plus the U.S. unpredictability, it pushed India towards this meeting.
It potentially pushed India, a pivotal power, into this new alignment, at least for this meeting. That's the interpretation.
So the fact that India and China are meeting now like this with Russia and others, it really is a significant geopolitical development. It can't be overstated.
It signals a potential reorientation of alliances, a direct challenge to decades of U.S. foreign policy. It's like the world is adapting to a new, more unpredictable America and creating new dynamics, new power blocks in the process.
This brings up that idea of a world of strongmen.
Yes, Stephen Collinson from the CNN panel made that observation. This is a world of strongmen now. Meaning that the U.S., which is nominally, an old-fashioned liberal country, is under Donald Trump trying to rule as a superpower, acting unilaterally, often rubbing traditional allies the wrong way, prioritizing perceived national interest over multilateralism or shared democratic values.
And that creates a vacuum.
It creates a vacuum, or at least a significant opportunity, for other nations, especially China, to step up, offer alternative models of governance, alternative international cooperation models, not necessarily aligned with U.S. interests or democracy.
And India's shifting orbit is a huge part of that.
India's shifting orbit isn't just about Washington and Delhi. It impacts stability across Asia, the global balance of power. It challenges decades of U.S. strategy. It fundamentally reshapes the whole chessboard.
Okay, so considering all this instability, judicial challenges at home, questions about our institutions, these dramatic shifts in alliances globally, what are the long-term implications for the U.S. negotiated position? With partners, with rivals like China, Japan?
It really feels like the predictability that used to define U.S. foreign policy is, well, gone, replaced by constant flux.
Yeah.
What's fascinating is how interconnected it all is and how quickly those connections can fray. Remember Scott Bessent's concern?
Yeah.
That this undermines the U.S. on the global stage as well. Could be embarrassing. That becomes even more potent when you see these geopolitical shifts happening in real time. The dazed and confused reaction from trading partners reflects this deep lack of predictability, lack of reliability in U.S. policy.
So if our courts can overturn trade policies, if our institutions' independence is questioned, if allies like India are looking elsewhere,
It dramatically weakens U.S. credibility, leverage, diplomatic influence. It makes it much harder to forge stable, long-term trade deals, harder to build strong coalitions for security threats, harder to even tackle global crises effectively.
it compromises our ability to lead.
In essence, yes, it compromises the U.S.'s ability to project power and leadership effectively, and that impacts international trade, economic stability, diplomatic relations in the world, the things that shape the world you live in.
From the price of goods to global security.
Exactly. It makes the world less predictable, potentially more perilous for everyone.
And this isn't just abstract theory, is it? These global shifts, new alliances, India reorienting, U.S. unpredictability, they hit home.
They have real-world consequences.
They can influence the cost of things you buy, the safety of travel, the stability of regions where U.S. troops might be. Real consequences for real people, stemming directly from how power is being used, checked, and perceived, both here and around the world.
Absolutely. It all connects back.
And that brings us towards the end of this deep dive. We've really covered a lot. The president's bold, maybe unprecedented expansion of executive authority, the intricate dance of checks and balances as other branches react,
Sometimes strongly, sometimes hesitantly.
and the dramatic recalibration of alliances on the world stage, the international community adapting to this new American approach.
It's been a complex picture.
So what's the core takeaway here? What should people really grasp from all this?
I think the core takeaway is just how much this period is a profound stress test. A stress test for the foundational principles of American governance.
Testing what specifically?
Testing the independence of its institutions. The delicate balance of power between the branches. America's steadfastness on the global stage.
It highlights that tension.
It highlights that even in a republic, maybe especially in a republic, that tension between executive will and constitutional limits is constant. It's dynamic.
And how that tension gets resolved.
How it gets resolved in the coming years,
Yeah.
that will have far-reaching consequences, maybe irreversible ones, for the future of American democracy and its role in the world.
So as you, our listener, reflect on this deep dive, here's a final provocative thought for you to chew on.
What happens next?
Yeah. What happens when the traditional guardians of checks and balances Congress, the courts, are themselves under this kind of unprecedented strain? Or when global allies start seriously reconsidering their loyalties, looking for new partners?
Big questions.
What might be the lasting legacy of these actions? On the future of democratic governance, on the international order, and maybe most importantly, what role do you believe independent information and critical thinking play in navigating such a complex, fast-changing landscape?
Crucial questions to keep asking.
We really encourage you to keep asking them. Stay curious. Keep seeking out informed perspectives. Thank you for joining us on The Deep Dive.